We often think national strength comes from expansion, dominance, or speed. But the Navajo Nation was built on a far more fragile idea: balance. And here's the counterintuitive truth. When balance breaks, even survival can become a moral test, not just a political one. If legitimacy comes from force, history rewards conquerors. But if legitimacy comes from memory, restraint, and land, the Navajo story asks us to rethink what a nation really is. Today, we're stepping into a nation that doesn't begin with borders on a map, but with relationships between people, land, ancestors, and time itself. We're exploring the Navajo Nation, or Diné Bikéyah, not as a footnote to American history, but as a living political and psychological system, one that has endured conquest, displacement, and institutional rupture, yet continues to assert cohesion and legitimacy on its own terms. This is not just a story of survival. It's a story of how a collective mindset forms under pressure, how moral choices echo across generations, and how a people rise from crisis without surrendering their identity. As we move through origins, catastrophe, governance, and modern resilience, we're asking a deeper question together. What does institutional integrity look like when power is taken away, but memory remains? Before treaties, before borders, before the word nation itself, the Diné understood the world through Hózhó, a concept often translated as harmony, but closer to right relationship. Hózhó isn't passive peace, it's active balance between humans and nature, authority and humility, tradition and adaptation. The Diné emerged from the Athabascan-speaking peoples who migrated south centuries ago, settling across what is now the American Southwest. But unlike many expanding civilizations, their social structure didn't revolve around conquest or monumental architecture. Instead, it revolved around kinship, clans, and place. Land wasn't owned, land was remembered. Trade networks connected the Diné with Pueblo societies, the Great Plains, and Mesoamerican roots. They exchanged turquoise, livestock, weaving techniques, and agricultural knowledge, not to dominate, but to integrate. Their architectural footprint, hogans built low to the earth, was intentional. Nothing was meant to outlast the land itself. Here's the striking truth. The Navajo Nation wasn't designed for expansion, it was designed for continuity. And that design choice shaped everything that followed. This worldview forged a collective mindset where legitimacy came not from rulers, but from alignment with ancestors, environment, and moral order. That mindset would soon be tested. In the 1860s, balance shattered. The United States, expanding westward, viewed the Diné not as a nation, but as an obstacle. Livestock raids, military reprisals, and escalating mistrust culminated in one of the most devastating episodes in Indigenous history, the Long Walk. Thousands of Navajo were forcibly removed from their land and marched over 300 miles to Bosque Redondo, a barren reservation in eastern New Mexico. This wasn't just displacement, it was an attempt at psychological erasure. The land was wrong, the water was poisoned, the promised supplies never arrived. Disease spread, hunger followed, and with it came a deeper crisis. How do we remain Diné when everything that defines Diné life is stripped away? This is where political psychology matters. Many societies fracture under such pressure. Authority collapses, cohesion dissolves. But the Navajo response wasn't rebellion alone, it was memory preservation. Songs were remembered, ceremonies were whispered, stories became institutions when formal institutions were denied. This is resilience in its rawest form, not heroic, not triumphant, but deliberate. When the U.S. government finally acknowledged failure and allowed the Navajo to return home in 1868, something extraordinary happened. The Navajo didn't seek revenge, they sought restoration.
The treaty allowed them to return not to their former size, but to their former center. This moment defines Navajo legitimacy. They didn't rise from crisis by seizing power. They rose by reclaiming moral continuity. Returning home didn't mean returning to the past. The world had changed. So had the Diné. The Navajo Nation gradually developed one of the most sophisticated systems of indigenous self-governance in North America, complete with a president, council, and judicial branch. But here's what makes it unique. Western institutions were adopted, but Navajo values remained the operating system. Decision-making emphasized consensus over speed. Leadership was expected to embody restraint, not charisma. Law was inseparable from ethics. Even economic development, oil, gas, uranium, became a moral dilemma. Resource extraction promised revenue and national strength, but at the cost of land and health. Uranium mining in particular left deep scars, both physical and psychological. This wasn't just an environmental crisis, it was an institutional one. How does a nation preserve legitimacy when survival seems to require compromise with forces that threaten its core values? The Navajo response wasn't perfect, but it was instructive. They debated publicly, they adapted policy, they confronted internal fractures without abandoning cohesion. This is what institutional integrity looks like under pressure, not purity, but accountability. And it's why the Navajo Nation remains one of the most resilient indigenous polities in the modern world. Today, the Navajo Nation spans parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, larger than some U.S. states. Yet challenges persist. Infrastructure gaps, healthcare disparities, political friction with federal authorities. And still, the Navajo response reflects the same collective mindset forged centuries ago. During crises, whether economic downturns or public health emergencies, the emphasis remains on community-first governance. COVID-19 hit the Navajo Nation hard, but the recovery revealed something profound. Mutual aid networks activated, elders were protected, public messaging appealed not to fear, but responsibility. This is political psychology in action. Where trust exists, compliance follows. Where legitimacy is earned, institutions hold. The Navajo Nation's rise from crisis wasn't fueled by coercion, it was fueled by cohesion. And that cohesion traces back to a worldview that refuses to separate power from ethics. The Navajo story challenges modern assumptions about what makes a nation strong. Not speed, but memory. Not dominance, but balance. Not conquest, but cohesion. Their long-term legacy isn't architectural monuments or imperial borders. It's something far rarer. A moral framework that survived catastrophe without hardening into bitterness. In a world facing institutional decay, political polarization, and crises of legitimacy, the Navajo Way offers a quiet but radical insight. National strength isn't proven when everything is working. It's revealed when everything is taken away and a people still know who they are. As we reflect on resilience, moral choices, and collective psychology, the Navajo Nation reminds us that rising from crisis doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like remembering and staying in balance long enough for the future to arrive. If this story resonated, share your thoughts below. How do memory and land shape legitimacy where you come from?